Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Creating Tailwinds Podcast by Flight Path Financial with your hosts, John Urbick and Jared Adams. Join us today as we discuss the power of infinite banking. And here we go.
Greetings, John. How are you, sir?
I am doing well, Jared. How are you today?
Doing great. Feeling good. Kids are back to school. Just kind of getting in the groove of what that looks like day to day. It's been an awesome summer. It was great to have time with them and all the fun stuff that we did, but it's also back in the grind. You don't have any more kids in school though, right? So you don't, those are long gone days, right?
Now it's on to the grandkids. But I do have to worry about the kids because I got a bunch in my neighborhood and it's bus season now. So everything's got to get moved back 15 minutes to get ahead of the buses.
Oh yeah. Yep. I understand that. Thank goodness you're one of the slow drivers in the neighborhood. We got some hoodlums in our neighborhood cruising through at 45 miles an hour in a 25 zone. I feel like that old guy, get off my lawn. I feel like I'm that guy.
Oh, no, that's not good. That's too fast with the kids around. There's places you can do that, but it's not a neighborhood.
Agreed. Well,
oh my gosh.
You've got a great topic queued up for us today. I want to turn it all over to you. You've done a lot of research and set up for this. So I really want to turn it over to you and just kind of engage where possible because I love this topic. I'll just cue it up for you that says what happens when bank credit dries up. So maybe just to walk us into that, we can understand from reading Nelson's book, there's only one pool of money. And it doesn't matter whether it's paper or digital, but where do we go from there? Like you've got this one pool of money. How does that impact where we have credit and how we get credit and how those two are interrelated?
All right. Well, keeping it at a high level, it's very important for people to understand that the economy runs on debt, on credit. That is how the fractional reserve banking system works. Our system, which goes back to the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, right?
Yep.
So
well, you said debt and credit. You said, were you meaning both?
Both.
Yes,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Yep.
There's two sides of the equation, right?
Yep.
So one guy is the creditor, the other one is the debtor.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And there's good debt and there's bad debt in this environment. If you got debt that's actually making you money, like a business that you're pouring money into, that's good debt. If you invest in equipment and power plant and all of that, that's a good thing.
Yep.
But credit card debt and a frivolous purchase of a car, perhaps you don't need. Maybe it's not the right time in life. Maybe it is. Who knows? Maybe you've got the backstop to do it. Yep. But if you're going to finance this stuff, understand what it's doing to you personally, and on a larger view, what it's doing to you as a business. And
you could argue that from a country standpoint, the debt that the country takes on can be good debt and bad debt as well, right?
Well, yes, but I hate to give free rein to politicians to spend our money the way they do, because there's no skin in the game for them.
Yes.
Whereas on an individual level or a small business level, you've got skin in the game, and you're going to pay attention to those things. And if you don't manage your debt well, you're going to go out of business.
Exactly.
Unlike other things.
Yep.
So
Perfectly said.
now,
so when the country runs out of debt, they just create more.
That's right. I mean, we're sitting at, it was a month ago, I checked, we were at $36 trillion of debt. And that does not include unfunded mandates, which is Social Security, which takes you into the hundreds of trillions of dollars globally. So we're sitting at 37. Now they just came out, I think I saw it this morning, 37 trillion. Jared, they're printing money. Well, they are printing money. The last was the 5 trillion for this latest big, beautiful bill, good, bad, or ugly. That's what it was.
Yep.
The interest on that debt is eating up we're creating, what was the number? It was $1 trillion every 5 months. And so with our statutory limit right now, we're going to hit that in about 20 months. It's $41.1 trillion. That's ungodly. That's a ton of money. So we're going to hit that at the burn rate we're in now in just 20 months. Then what?
Sure.
So Congress has got two choices. They can either print more money or they can get fiscally responsible and start cutting their spending to try to bring the country back. Well, you got to ask yourself, and the whole purpose of this conversation is, why IBC fits into this whole paradigm, regardless of what happens.
Yes.
Because if they keep printing money, it's inflationary. The affordability already for homes is out of sight. People can't afford homes. Well, it's going to get worse. The cost of living will get higher because incomes haven't kept up with it. But if you build a infinite bank for yourself, an IBC structured policy, that money is going to grow with that inflationary environment because the assets that are underlying those investments will grow. But you own them this time
Yep.
through the life insurance company. So it's that part of it is a net positive for you. So you address the inflationary component in large measure, and you address taxation because it's that money accrues tax free essentially. All
Yep.
right. Now, what if you go the other way? What if they get religion and fiscal religion and they say they're gonna stop this money printing? Well, it's going to be painful for everybody because now the current engine that drives the economy is debt, moving debt out and printing more and more money and then creating more and more debt to support those expenditures at the
Yep.
federal level. So, well, what happens? What happens if they begin to constrict that money supply?
Yep.
Then money gets, you can't get the money from the banks. They tighten lending restrictions. Mortgages get more expensive. You have a high credit score, yet you don't qualify, or you qualify for less money. They reduce the amount of money that they're going to give you. It has dramatic impact on society as a whole, and it slows down the economy, which is the last thing Washington wants right now. Is they don't want to slow down the economy; they want to keep it going. But
Yep.
there's got to be a balance here, and I think that our approach, where we're using infinite banking to build our private credit facility, which is independent of this,
Hmm.
all of this going on around us,
Yep.
gives us a decided advantage going into the future. This is extremely important. If you're a business owner listening out there, you need to call Jared or I because I'm telling you, all that, just think about how much money that you borrow from the banks and you funnel through the banks. They can turn that spigot off in a heartbeat. Why do you need to have that worry? That is a risk for your business and for your individual family that you don't need.
Yep.
You can address this. So,
So as a maybe a minor form of a read back just to see if I've got it right on what you're saying. You've got two different scenarios that are highly likely looking at what we've got going forward. We've got a scenario where if they are to become fiscally responsible and just kind of rein in the spending, yes, inflation should slow down because they aren't just printing money to catch up with debt. Yet the availability of debt is going to be tightening
yes,
because there isn't going to be as much out there for the constant increase of demand. So pretty easy supply and demand, right? You need more of
exactly
it,
right.
and there's not that much of it because there's a tightening. So it goes up in cost and availability. So
Right.
you've got the one path where you could see an actual trimming where, if it was like your household budget, where you go, I'm going to go bankrupt in a year. Let's go ahead and trim some of this fat. If they take that path, you're still going to end up in a tight credit spot just by the nature of how much is out there and how that's going to be funneled to now more selective ways of giving how much and how often. So is
That's right.
that's path one, right?
That's right.
Path two is they continue on the path, which is just god awful spending, where they're printing money every time they need more of it. And now the inflation runs rampant in a spot where it's already run pretty crazy over the last 3 to 5. And so now you end up in a tight spot where your dollar isn't worth as much in terms of what it purchases. Even though you have the same amount in the bank, it purchases less just by the availability of just how inflation is going to affect the purchasing power. Are those kind of the sum ups of what the paths may look like?
Well, yeah, when you go in the other direction from an inflationary to a deflationary environment, or we could have something called stagflation, where that's where they talk about joblessness going up and inflation going up at the same time. There's a lot of different
Hmm.
components here. We're just kind of focusing on two scenarios. There's multiple scenarios, but I think these are the two most likely,
Sure.
and the most likely of the two, unfortunately, is more money printing. That's where they're going to go because
Right.
Congress does not know how to not spend money, and
Right.
they're going to do it until it's. What is the old physics axiom? It says a body tends to stay in motion unless it's acted upon by in
By
continued
an
motion.
equal
It's
or
acted
opposite
upon.
force.
Exactly. Yes,
Yep.
that's what I was trying to get to.
Yep.
There's no opposite force strong enough to dissuade them from that spending. I think it'll come, but it may come from outside the United States. It may come from all our creditors in different countries out there who do business with us and say, "Look, your currency is which is the reserve currency of the world. It's just not cutting it. You've got to be more fiscally responsible." So there may be tremendous pressure building to do something about that. We
Yep.
have to be more fiscally responsible. And gosh, we're just not seeing it in Congress right now.
Do you remember the story from how privatized banking really works
Oh,
about
sure.
Caesar? That
Hey,
fits here
Cliff in
as
the
well,
Heights.
right?
It does. Go
Uh,
ahead and tell it for those that may not have heard it.
so the story goes in the old days, of of Caesar in the Roman Empire, when you had coins made of a variety of metals. At the time, I believe it was mostly silver.
Right.
Um, but the currency was coins. How many coins did you have? It bought and sold what you needed. Well, as Caesar's expenditures for both war and personal expenditures got out of control and grew, much like the situation we're looking at right now, he made the brilliant choice to just clip just a little bit off of those coins. I know they're mostly round already to begin with, but we're going to clip just a little bit off. And when you clip just a little bit off of 1,000 coins, you end up with the ability to
Another
melt
coin.
that down. Yes, you've created your own bullion. You can melt that down and create more coins, yet you didn't change the original supply in terms of how much silver was out there, but you did change the amount of coins that are out there. And so folks that were in the market doing business, they would go, a bushel full of fish may have been one coin. And now as they realized that there was started to be a little bit less on the side of it, they could tell there was a part that was clipped off. And they go,
Right.
that's not worth as much anymore. Now I need two coins. And
Right.
you can see where this is going. Like it's pretty straightforward. It makes a lot of sense when you look at it from behind the scenes. But this is inflation in action. The more you print, the more you clip the corner off of every either virtual or paper dollar, the supply goes up and therefore the value goes down. And
Right. Right.
this is the exact same thing we're looking at. Just like you're saying, where you've got a potential where, even as the world reserve currency, they may go, this isn't working. You guys aren't clearly not able to remain fiscally responsible throughout this entire process.
And what people don't understand about that point you're making is that if you lose that reserve status, that reserve currency status around the globe, and it could very well happen, and it will take time. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but the standard of living in this country will plummet because we can buy things globally now with the power of the U.S. dollar. If you take that power away, forget it. They're going to say we want it in gold, we want it in pick a different currency, pick a different medium of exchange,
Yeah,
crypto coins. I don't know what,
that's right.
but
Yep.
you're going to lose the power of the dollar, and that is a terrible betrayal of the future generations. I mean, so
Yep.
we have an obligation to our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids and down the road to fight this and return the United States to economic sanity and fiscal responsibility. You have to do it. And
Yeah.
it's not going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be easy. But
So
IBC at least gives you a pathway to begin the fight.
that was going to be what my offer was to we understand the two different pathways that are highly likely, and yet to bring it back to what you've said here, where IBC can be a solution in either direction, and not just a solution, but a win-win type of scenario. One,
Absolutely.
you're gonna fight one problem over here, or you're gonna fight one problem over there, and in either case, you've hedged your bet, or you've created a system that allows you beyond what the problem is. In the case of a credit crunch where you have inability to access funds. Maybe you can still access funds, but it's at a really, really high rate. Or maybe you can access funds, but it's not what you expected for the amount to be. Well, if you've created that asset, which is the, dividend paying whole life insurance policy, where your cash value is the present value of the future value of your death benefit. And if you
Right.
have that cash value to borrow from, Now, we've talked about we could talk about some of the off cases, but 99.9% of the time, they are honoring that cash value for you to have access to within 3 days. Hey, I
Right.
need this amount of that cash value deposited in my account. Yep, sure. It'll be there in 3 days. Now, Bank of Wall Street, Bank of Main Street, they may be telling you, no, nope, sorry. We're either going to charge you 15% interest or we're going to give you half of what you're asking for. Now, this becomes the solution that you have that funds in your account in 3 days.
Right. Well, you have dollars. If you're sitting on those dollars in your bank account, which isn't paying you anything, or you even have them under the mattress, they are going down in value every single day. Whereas your dollars, represented in dollars, of your cash values are going up every day. And you got to ask why. It's not because the dollar is getting more powerful. What's happening is the underlying investments that the insurance company has deployed that capital into is moving with inflation. And that's so important to understand that, look, if you got to keep your money somewhere, keep it here. Think about the reserve ratios.
Yep.
I sent you
Yep.
something you might remember, a fateful day, March 26, 2020, right? What was going on then? Okay, we had the COVID meltdown, right? All that stuff's
Yep.
going on.
Yep.
And the banks previously stepped down from a 10 to a 3% reserve requirements. And I know this, I don't mean to get off into the weeds on this stuff, and if I am,
Yep.
stop me, but there was a holdback required by every bank that they had to have certain reserve on deposits. That date, March 26, 2020, the Federal Reserve removed all deposit from every these requirements from every depository institution, every bank. They no longer had to keep a penny on their deposits on hold. It plummeted. There was a reserve balances required. You can go look at it yourself. It's on the FDIC's website, on the Fred they call it, the
Yep.
St. Louis Fred. You can Google it, and you can see there that it topped out over, oh gosh, 130 billion dollars or something. It was a huge. It was 13 trillion dollars, and it plummets that day. It goes from that number down to zero, right?
So
So what happens?
the use of that or the effectiveness of that is if I put $10,000 in the bank, previously they would have need to have kept, you said 3%, so $300 in case I needed that $300 right now. Where now you're saying it's a 0%. So I
It's
put that
zero,
$10,000 in, they can loan it out as many times as they need to. They're required to keep zero of that
right?
$10,000 that I just put in.
That's right. And the thing about it is that's just 3%. Even when it was at 10%, if you had everybody runs It's a Wonderful Life. A lot of older people do anyway. It was a great old Jimmy Stewart movie where, the bank's going to get shut down, the savings and loan, the thrift savings and loan.
Yep.
And there was a run on the bank and all the people wanted their money. The same thing can happen digitally. More than 3% make a run on the bank. They want their money. The money isn't there. And so the FDIC does have a holdback of about 3% in a different place, but it's 3% of a
Yep.
hundred.
Yep.
That's insane. Compare that to an infinite banking structured contract with a whole life insurance company. There's a whole, apart from the whole host of benefits, those things are dollar for dollar. If
Yep.
I borrow from my life insurance contract, which I do regularly in the course of doing business,
Hmm.
and I default, and there's 100 of people just like me, and we all default. They can't cover just three of us. They can cover 100%. All 100 of us are covered because they have the money. It's sitting inside of our cash values, which is representative of where that money is with the life insurance company invested out there in the market. So
That's
they
right.
could say, fine, yeah, you can go ahead and default. We'll just take what we have in our possession already. Thank you. Have a very nice day. And oh, by the
Which
way,
is
here's your tax bill.
which is interesting in itself because we talk so easily about becoming your own banker and that how that's structured around a whole life insurance contract, and folks
Right.
just they kind of short circuit there. They're like, what are you talking about with a bank and insurance? Like that's crazy. That's crazy talk. Yet show me the difference between a bank on Bank of Main Street, which is required to keep $0 of what you've loaned them. Basically, you're not depositing with them, you're loaning them your money to go loan out elsewhere. A bank has those regulations where an insurance company has to provide dollar for dollar what you're accessing, or they have to have it backed by an actual dollar. It's almost like an insurance company has a gold standard, right? Like where they have to keep an actual currency version of what you have in cash value, where the bank, they have none of that. So it's just such an interesting concept on how over all these years, this is what we've got out of this, where, the banks, quote unquote, are trusted when they are required to keep none of it. And yet the insurance company, for many, many reasons, gets a bad name. Now,
Yeah,
we could spin off to a whole nother podcast as to where those bad names come from and why. Yet, which one's backed by the actual asset?
exactly right. This stuff gets into the weeds quickly when you start
Yep,
looking at where the flow of funds and where all those assets are at. But I can tell you that the assets with life insurance companies are the highest hanging fruit in the financial world.
sure.
Those with a ton of money, those with the largest assets, they'll have their real estate holdings. And what do they backstop all of this with? Life insurance. And
Yep.
there's a reason because the life insurance companies, they have all the capital. The amount of capital that they have over the banks, they dwarf the banks.
And
And
even the
they're not
banks,
levered. Yeah.
what do they have to protect themselves? The bank-owned
Bully.
life insurance, the BOLI,
You bet.
like you've got an absolute crazy type of situation in terms of who owns what.
So, what is the impetus right now for somebody to go out there and learn about and get a infinite banking contract for themselves? Why is that so important, Jared? Given the landscape we're in right now, and you don't want to be alarmist or anything, but look, there's a lot of things happening very quickly. It doesn't take long to look 10, 20 years ago and see what the world looked like and look at it today. There's a lot of uncertainty. Why
Yeah.
don't people do so? Why don't you do something about that? Gosh, I'm trying to think of who coined the phrase, but I think it might have been, I don't know if it was Steve Jobs or not. I could be wrong, but basically, a great idea is nothing more than a great idea unless you act upon it.
Yep.
So this is a great idea. Beyond a great idea, it's an outstanding idea. It's a life-saving financial discovery decision that you can make in your life if you're willing to just take that step and make that phone call and learn a little bit about it. No pressure, no sales pitch. This is a financial reality that carries itself. Nobody has to do anything to do that
Yep.
for you.
That's well said. And I think there's an education piece on this as well because John and I could tell you all day long what personal experiences we've had or what stories we've seen from clients or other folks that we work with. And yet at the end of the day, you're the owner and the payer of a contract, a life insurance contract that you have to be educated on. This is not a spoon feed type of environment. So, you if you do half of the work and you come have the edges rounded off by John and I, you're going to learn more than you ever wanted to know about banking, money, finances, how that all flows in the right direction. And we're not experts, we're not lawyers, we're not CPAs, but we are independent practitioners that have been signed off by the Nelson Nash Institute to know and be educated on Nelson Nash's version of infinite banking concepts. And that in itself is an education to be had. So I would encourage, even just like John has, just to encourage to go educate yourself. Go read a couple of books. Go for at the very least check out Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker. You can find it anywhere books are sold. You can call John or I might up, and we'll be happy to send you a copy. And after that, if you want to keep digging further, there's a lot of options. But I really encourage that there's an education piece on your own. And I can assure you that the banks and Wall Street and your common everyday banker does not necessarily want you to know this information because you're not spoon feeding them money when you get off of the banking train, so to
Treadmill.
speak. Yep.
Yeah.
When you have the opportunity to eliminate outside debt through your own system while building your warehouse of wealth, create a passive income and a tax-free wealth transfer, those are
Yeah.
all pretty awesome benchmarks to me. Yet when you step away from the system, they're not excited about it because you stop making money for them.
Right. Now, I can draw a corollary to what you're saying and to our experience flying airplanes. You've seen this as well, what I'm going to say. When I got checked out as an instructor, airplane with this company, They have leads, and that's the guy who's giving you the over the shoulder, and you've got to talk about all the contingencies with new pilots and everything that you've got to deal with. And he told me this story that really sat with me for quite a while. And he basically said, "Hey, this new guy, who's a talented guy, sits in the seat, right seat, and puts the thing back, puts his feet up, and says, 'Okay, teach me.'" And I'll tell you off the air who this is, and you'll go, "Holy cow!" Not the guy you want. He's like, think of a Marine with a bad vinegar taste in his mouth.
Yes.
That's this kind of guy. But he has a heart of gold, and he's a very smart guy. And he was my lead, and he was tough, and he was great, and he's somebody that means a lot to me. Anyway, so that kind of guy is from you and I is going to get zero attention. We're not going to do the work for you.
That's right.
But somebody who sits down and says, "Look, I got gaps here, here, and here. I want to learn. I'll do whatever it takes to succeed." You and I both will bend over backwards. We have both done this where you're not paid for going out and educating people and spending all this time to go out into the marketplace and teach people who go on and do other things, even though you haven't made a sale to them. Doesn't matter.
That's right.
It's understanding what this is all about and setting the record straight, because Nelson's not here to do it, and he's commissioned us to do that. And that's
right.
my intention. I know that's yours, Jared.
That's spot on. I love the aviation reference there. Having sat in that instructor seat in this, you sit at what looks like a jump seat position, right? In between two guys that are up there just sweating, working their tail off, hoping that everything goes well. It doesn't matter whether it's a training or a checking environment. It's stressful. There's no question about it. It's stressful. And to sit 5 feet behind them with the ruler, so to speak, of the kindergarten teacher that can slap their hands at any time. If either one of those guys show up and do 90% of the effort, I can almost guarantee you I can add just a little bit of value to what they're doing in the day to rough up some of their edges or round some of the corners and send them out a better pilot. I'm confident about that. And yet they had to show up with 90% of it. So, and you're spot on to come up with that analogy, because that's very similar in here. Do the work, do the reading, do that, take the effort, go.
It's so worth it. It is so worth it.
Read something that you wouldn't normally read on this topic, just to see where it takes you, see the rabbit hole that it runs down, and then reach out, because we'd obviously love to chat with you about what that looks like for your family and customizing something for you.
I think that's a wonderful way to wrap this all up, Jared.
Awesome.
Very well said.
Yep.
Very well said.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure to be with you. We'll wrap this one up and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
All right, sir. Jared, you take care. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Creating Tailwinds podcast with your hosts, John and Jared. As always, we welcome your questions and critiques. You can reach us through the Contact Us tab at flightpathfinancial.com. Remember, it's all about how you think. As Nelson Nash has said about infinite banking, give it your close attention, and it can make a radical improvement in your financial future.